If you already watched a few low-light photography tutorials, you may already have come across this one shutter speed rule for low-light work, which is to use a shutter speed of 1/2 times your focal length. And this is also a shutter speed rule that I have taught so many people on this channel ever since I created it. And honestly, most of the time, like roughly 80% of the time, I don't actually abide by this 1/2 times your focal length shutter speed rule. And in today's video, I want to break down to you specifically what shutter speed I use in what scenarios and how reframing shutter speed has actually totally transformed the way I think about low light photography gear. And I would say without further ado, let's get into this. I think we can probably all agree that when we shoot at night, we have less light available than when we were to shoot during the day. And from a technical perspective, that means that we really absolutely want to maximize the light gathering capability of our setup, capturing as much of that little light as possible. This is why most of the time you're being recommended to shoot your lens wide open, because it means more light is hitting the sensor, and that you should probably also raise your ISO to compensate for the fact that there is not that much light available in your scene. And shutter speed, so the length that the sensor is exposed to light, also serves a similar purpose, because the longer it is exposed to light, the more light it can capture and the cleaner and more detailed your files are going to be. But at the same time, when you have a shutter speed that's too slow, you might introduce camera shake into your scene, or your subjects that are moving in the frame might appear a little bit blurry. And this means that on the one hand, we incentivize to use a very slow shutter speed because it allows us to get technically maximum image quality and more detail in our shots because we have more light collected. And on the other hand, we also need to freeze that motion, which suggests that we need to shoot at a faster shutter speed at night. And because of this dilemma, photographers have tried to find a really healthy middle way between a shutter speed that's not too slow, but also not too fast. And that has created this rule of 1/2 times your focal length, which is supposed to be the sweet spot. Fair enough, good middle value. And in the case of my camera that I use for most of my low light work, the X106, this would be 1/2 times 35 millimeters. This is a cropped censored cameras, but make sure to use the focal length in its full frame terms, because otherwise your shutter speed would be significantly slower. But oddly enough, sometimes that leads me to shots actually turning out blurry because my shutter speed was, again, not really fast enough. And sometimes I know that I could really have slowed it down even further to get the best results. And over the time, this has led me to develop a routine of what shutter speed I actually need for what specific scenario. And today I want to share all these routines and all that knowledge with you and break down for what scenario, what shutter speed is actually required. And first of all, the most important aspect that affects how fast your shutter speed actually needs to be is the size of your subject relative to the frame. I'm specifying the size of the subject and not the distance of you from the subject, because depending on what focal length you actually shoot at, the relative distance of you and the subject might be relatively big, but in the frame or the photo that you take in the end, your subject might either be very small if you shoot on a wide angle lens or very big because you shoot on a telephoto lens, for instance. So it really comes down to the relative size of your subject in the photo that you take. And generally speaking, if the subject is big in your frame, like here for instance, you need a faster shutter speed. For me, usually 1/80th to 1/125th of a second is good to freeze action in these types of scenarios. On the other hand, if you have a subject that's small in the frame, like here for instance, I know for sure that I can also get away with a shutter speed of between 1/30th of a second and 1/15th of a second, so significantly slower. And this insight is huge for me because I consider myself a streetscapes photographer. So I shoot in the streets, usually of bigger cities, and I compose a little bit like a landscape photographer, and my subjects are usually small in the frame. So not like a conventional street photographer would, where the subject is usually very big in the scene, but usually the subject is just going to be the small anchor point embedded into a bigger composition. And for me personally, knowing that I can get away with super slow shutter speeds, let the camera collect even more light, and I still retain the crispiness of my subject while having no noise in the photo is a huge insight for me. And by the way, if you like the way I take photos, shutter speed is obviously only part of the story, and the real game changer is learning how to use the light available to you. And that's why I've created a complete guide dedicated to light, including an in-depth section on shooting at night specifically. Beyond that, it also teaches you how to use light to your advantage in virtually any conditions, so feel free to check it out using the QR code on the screen or via the link in the description down below. So far, all the photos that I've shown you were including people walking. And generally speaking, people walk at relatively consistently slow speeds between 9 kilometers per hour and 12 kilometers per hour. But for runners, for instance, you may need a slightly faster shutter speed because they are faster. And if you actually want to freeze every motion, every movement that they do, then you may have to go up to a shutter speed as fast as 1/125th or 1/160th of a second. And this is exacerbated further by, for instance, photographing cars, because they can move from a speed of, let's say, 20 kilometers per hour all the way to 200 kilometers per hour, and you may need a faster shutter speed to freeze the action. And again, this interacts with how far your subject is away from the camera, because even a runner that's far away, I know I can get away with like 1/30th of a second. However, if you want to circumvent this shutter speed restriction and not really want to shoot at these super fast shutter speeds, you can actually go for a panning shot. So if you shoot at a shutter speed of around 1/15th of a second and you match your camera's panning speed to the speed of your subject, as you will see, the subject will ideally stay sharp while the surroundings are blurry. So if you want a workaround to fast shutter speeds at night, the panning shot is really one way to do this, giving you a shot that embraces a lot of movement, but giving you also the possibility to retain a clean file, and you don't have to go into high ISOs as a consequence of this faster shutter speed. The next aspect that affects how fast your shutter speed has to be for low light photography is the direction in which your subject moves. Because if a subject is moving toward or away from you, motion blur from a slow shutter speed is often less noticeable. That's because the subject moves less across the frame while the shutter is open. But if the subject moves from left to right or right to left, it travels much further across the frame during the exposure, which makes motion blur much more obvious. In practice, that means that I can often get away with 1/60th of a second for subjects moving towards or away from me, but usually I need something a little bit faster, like 1/125th of a second for subjects moving sideways. Of course, this also depends on the subject size and speed. And now you may wonder, for arguably justified reasons, why am I making all these subtle typologies of like different kinds of shots where I need different shutter speeds? Why not just keep the shutter speed fixed at a reasonable 1/100th of a second and not bother with it at all? That's a fair point, but I'm going to give you 3 reasons why you should actually be more selective when choosing your shutter speed. And the first reason is technical. You can simply get away with much cleaner shots. Let's for instance take an example with a small subject here walking in our direction, suggesting, as we have studied, that we can get away with a shutter speed of 1/15th of a second, leading to ISO 2500. Had I chosen a shutter speed of 1/100th of a second, my ISO would have been 16,000 or something, making my photo borderline unusable. So knowing how your subject behaves at different shutter speeds gives you much more potential to squeeze every bit of image quality out of your sensor and your setup that would otherwise go to waste. The second reason why I make these distinctions is because it's actually not that hard to adjust your shutter speed. It might feel a bit overwhelming to keep all of these different shutter speed scenarios in your head, when you can't drop it, when you have to keep it high, and honestly it's something you just learn by doing. And the way I simplify it is through my camera setup. I usually shoot my lens wide open, I set my ISO to auto, and I underexpose by 1 stop, and that way the only setting that I really need to think about is shutter speed. On my Fuji cameras, I set the shutter speed dial to T. This lets me control the shutter speed with the front command dial. It's not only faster than using the top dial, but it's also more precise because I can adjust in third stops instead of full stops. And that just makes it really easy to fine-tune my shutter speed from shot to shot. And the final reason why I do these subtle exposure changes is for creative reasons. Because so far we have assumed that we want to actually freeze the action, but sometimes I deliberately want to embrace blur in my photos, so I deliberately keep a slow shutter.
Hallo.
Hallo, guten Tag.
Bitte.
Genau, das bin ich, ja. Vielen, vielen Dank. Schönen Tag noch. Tschüss. Okay, so I think this is my new purse because mine is like literally falling apart, dissolving itself. All right, where have we been? Ah, yeah, true, at creative ways to use long exposures. So sometimes I deliberately want to have slower exposures and actually embrace movement. Here I wanted to photograph the lady at the kiosk and she really does not move at all and hasn't moved in minutes. And at the same time, I want to blur the people walking past the kiosk to make the lady stand out even more against that blur. And by setting a slow shutter speed of around 1/10 of a second, the movement is blurred while the lady is frozen because she hasn't moved. The extent to which you can slow down your shutter speed depends on your creative vision, how blurry you want the people to be, but also on the particularities of your gear, namely whether your camera has some kind of stabilization, and the focal length matters too, as usually the tighter the focal length, the faster the shutter speed has to be. If your camera has no stabilization, I advise you to either find a stable surface to steady the camera or to just simply use a tripod. Given we have now outlined most of the relevant aspects that affect how fast or how slow your shutter speed has to be, how did it actually affect the way I choose my gear? For a very long time, I just arbitrarily chose a shutter speed of 1/125th of a second, and rather unsurprisingly, I had to often go into very high ISOs, and I was blaming my gear for the noisy photos. Don't get me wrong, sometimes such high shutter speeds are necessary. However, I found that around 90% of my photos, I can drop my shutter speed sometimes significantly, collect more light, and get super clean results with like basically any setup. These days, I'm for instance fairly unbothered to do night photography on my kit lens, because even on that lens, my shutter speed optimization tricks give me very, very usable results. And with that said, bear in mind that in photography, knowledge and vision matter so much more than the equipment that you use, even at night. And with that being said, if you're still interested in learning a little bit more about long exposure photography, then I highly recommend you watch this video up here. And with that being said, thank you so much for tuning in, and hopefully see you in the next one. Bye.